I'm going to get started. Today, we're going to be doing plant ID. So it's kind of a lot of looking at pictures and talking rapidly about them. So hold on a second, let me just move my, yeah, so it's going to mostly be that. Like I said earlier a second ago, thank you guys for sending in the homework submissions. I didn't get all of them into the slideshow, but I think we don't need that many anyway. There's a lot of repeats and it probably would be just another hour of looking at photos. But we're going to review the homework at the end. I think it might be helpful to go over some of the plants, and then at the end we can kind of talk about some of the photos you guys sent, some of the common ones, some of the maybe like not native ones that were also submitted. There weren't many though. I was impressed. You guys know your natives. Let's see. Oh gosh. Oh yeah. So I just want to remind you guys have a handout for this lesson. It's like easy. I think it's easy California native plants to Southern California. It's a great little like cheat sheet, kind of like your deck of cards, but great cheat sheet that has a list of easy plants for SoCal in coastal regions or inland regions. They're just like the easiest kind of beginner plants for folks that, you know, are very tolerant of a lot of conditions. The other thing is the flashcards. You guys should all have your flashcards. This will be the class to have them in. So I would say grab them. They're going to be helpful, I think, for following along. So if you don't have them, maybe run and grab them. And if not, it's, you know, you'll get through it too. Yeah, so just to start, just California natives are, what are they? They are native plants that have existed for millennia in their present form in California. So, and they've evolved together in their soils with the same like climatic conditions and with the same kind of animals and insect life. So they're adapted. They've evolved together and they're adapted to their locales. And the main thing, just a note about our climate, we're considered a Mediterranean climate region, and you guys might all know this, but that's just kind of indicative of our warm, dry summers and our kind of cool, rainy winters. That's a Mediterranean climate region, and we're not the only one. Obviously, there's others, like including the Mediterranean itself. So I just wanted to make a note about that because it came up in the homework a couple times, but also it's very common that other Mediterranean plants, or sorry, other plants that are native to other Mediterranean regions that may not be California natives, but they are native to like South Africa or something like that, that is another Mediterranean region. They, or the tip, the southern part of South Africa, but, or the Mediterranean itself, those tend to do really well in our climate, in our landscaping climate, and they tend to be ones that you see a lot. And sometimes people confuse them and say they're natives, and they're actually not California natives, but they are native to some region that's a climate region like ours. So I just wanted to mention that. Anyway, we're going to go over the most common California natives for Southern California that are available in the landscaping industry. So that's what we're going to be going over today. Obviously, there's tons of native plants in Southern California, but we're just going to be going over the most common ones that you find. Yeah, if you're looking at your deck of cards, I'm going to refer to it a lot. So anyway, if you're looking at your deck of cards, super handy, like the third or fourth page, they have that legend on there and, you know, explains what the, you know, all the information on the cards. These are great. This is such a great resource. Like literally they have everything we're going to talk about today in a nutshell on these cards. So yeah, I can't say anything else about it. But anyway, you guys you'll notice the names that usually it's the genus that's listed. Sometimes it's the species name. You're going to want to at least know the genus, like learn that, learn the species name if it's listed, or the subspecies or cultivar if it's listed. But the genus name is, you know, a good start. Let's see. Yeah, and I think I'm not really going to go over it specifically, but I think you guys know there's like a legend card. I don't know if you can even see it, but it tells you everything from like the kind of watering conditions or like the watering regimen that you want for those plants, the kind of sun it likes, drainage that it can handle. And then on the back, it has these awesome little things that tell you when it has its like seasonal color. So that could be like its flower or a really showy seed or whatever. That's all showed. And then, oh yeah, and then the icons at the bottom are the gray part. Great, super friendly little icons that kind of tell you if it's good for like wildlife or hummingbirds or containers, or it's really fragrant. Anyway, really helpful. And I'm going to be like cheating and using these the whole time. So don't hate on me. Anyway, so I guess we'll just get into it. We're going to kind of go from from small to big. Going with like ground covers up to kind of larger trees. And to start, the Arctostaphylos manzanita. This isn't actually the picture I think on your cards is better. This one actually kind of is mixed with a Cleveland sage, so you might get the impression that they have purple flowers, but they don't. It's really those leaves that are kind of the oblong leaves there. That's the manzanita here in the photo of the PowerPoint. Anyway, manzanitas they come in all different shapes and sizes. There's like over 100 cultivars of them and over 50 in the wild. So there are a lot, and these are just generalities usually. There's exceptions to all the rules. But, you know, manzanitas, I think, are mostly known for their really red bark. And, oh, sorry, hold on. Right. They're known for their really, really red bark. And that, you know, they're kind of iconic in that way. They're evergreen. They have those like beautiful little urn-shaped flowers. I think most people are familiar with them, especially if they know it, like have heard of California natives. So they are like generally don't really like summer watering or summer fertilizing. They don't do well with it. So they're just kind of picky about that. But there are exceptions, like I said. In terms of ground covers, the Carmel Sur variety, which I think is Arctostaphylos, let's see, it says here, Edmundsii Carmel Sur. I think it's like mostly the lowest one you can find. You can see on the size chart also on your deck of cards at the bottom, there's like a little icon for like a person and then like the size of the plant to give you a gist of like how big it gets. I'm sorry, the Carmel Sur is like one of the lower ones in terms of it stays like between 1 and 2 feet high. And it tolerates lots of different garden conditions, low growing, it can smother weeds. Lots of them, the ground covers for Arctostaphylos are just great for slopes or maybe like kind of spilling over a wall or something like that. But they are great, as you can see with the icons, great for wildlife, birds. Hummingbirds love the flowers, pollinators, they're a star. So let's just move to Artemisia. As a ground cover, again, Artemisia is similar. It's kind of a varied group, not as varied, but has several different members within it. In terms of, I think the most striking thing about it, aside from its like silvery foliage, is it's super fragrant, like just amazing smell and fragrance and aroma on most of, I think all of the members actually. But the ground cover ones are the Canyon Gray, Artemisia californica, Canyon Gray, and then Montara are really low growing ones. The Artemisia californica that you see out in the wild is a little bit more shrubby, uprighty. And you can have both uprighty kind of growers and then ground covers. But the ground cover ones are Canyon Gray and Montara. And Canyon Gray is like this spidery crawler, and Montara is a bit more moundy. But they both are cultivars that kind of grow on the ground. Let's see. Anything else? Oh, well, I think that photo actually too, the last photo, I think that's actually Tridentata. I could be wrong, but Tridentata is like a beautiful, stunning plant. And so that's why I'm assuming it's that with the photo. Baccharis is, Coyote brush is just like, I mean, a humble workhorse of the native plant, of California native plants. It kind of does a lot of things. It's fast growing. It has that neat foliage. It tolerates heat. It's good for erosion control. Great habitat for birds, pollinators. Like everybody loves this guy, and he's just really durable, really tolerant, or really durable in terms of can handle quite a few garden conditions, but also especially the Baccharis pilularis pigeon point, which is on the EASY list, the list of easy Southern California natives that you guys have. That one can take trimming, like pruning, hard pruning. It can take coppicing. So it's very durable in terms of can hang with humans pretty well. You even can cut it. You want to cut it back annually, actually. I think, yeah, the pigeon point is the most common kind of low growing one, and low is kind of 2 feet high. It's not a totally to the ground one, but around 2 feet high, and it is a real spreader. Twin Peaks is another one. You can see that on your card there. Let's see, Ceanothus. Let's see. Oh, Ceanothus. Okay, similar to Arctostaphylos. There's like dozens of species and varieties throughout the state, and also doesn't really like summer water or summer fertilizing. They're kind of a little picky about that. Again, there are exceptions. There's so many different cultivars, but there's just a range of colors or leaf color, leaf shape. They're really iconic for their blue flowers, though this one is white. There are a few white cultivars, but it's white to blue, purple, all the shades of blues and purples basically exist in the Ceanothus group. And it can be a ground cover, a hedge, or a tree, but in this case, we're talking about ground covers. So I believe the one that they have here, oh yeah, there's a Point Reyes or Yankee Point. Those are like the really common ones that at least I'm more familiar with those ones, but there are several different kind of compact forms or spreading forms. And the Point Reyes is a kind of compact guy. And I was gonna say actually something about, but it prefers the coast. It's kind of a coastal guy. And oh yeah, and I believe this photo is of a popcorn, which is a Ceanothus maritimus. And popcorn is one of the few that has the white flowers. So, and it's kind of slow growing, but it is a ground cover that does pretty well. You guys, I'm kind of skipping over like all the deets on the cards, like the watering habit and the sun and the drainage, but I can mention that if you guys want that. But it is on the cards, so I'm kind of skipping over it. But if anybody wants me to kind of go over those just to reinforce it, I'm down for that as well. Just, I guess, yeah, you can let me know maybe, Ben, what people want.
Just so you know, Claire, yeah. I've asked people to go ahead and put questions in the chat if they have them. So if you want to answer those at a certain point, or if you want to do it as you go along, just let me know.
Okay, how about let's see, what are we at, 5:15? How about we kind of wait until the break, like right before the break, we can do like questions in chunks maybe.
Okay.
If Great, not, I mean, we'll see, I guess. I don't have a preference, but I'll just kind of plow through for a little bit. The Fragaria, sorry, is it's our native strawberry. So if it's a nice alternative substitute to like the cultivated strawberry, and it's like a true ground cover. So you can see in your icon, it's like less than 1 foot high. It's actually really nice for growing in between like pavers or something, really low growing. It can tolerate alkaline soils even. There's 2 varieties that's mentioned on the card. The Chilonensis, the Fragaria Chilonensis, is more coastal, likes kind of coastal sun, and it has like a woodier fruit that's not, birds love it, but we don't really care for it, or it's not that exciting, I guess, for humans, especially if you're used to the cultivated strawberries. And then there's Fragaria Vesca, which is got a nice, really sweet fruit, but much smaller, tiny little fruit. And you kind of have to compete with it with birds. So obviously, like most of our natives that have any kind of fruiting thing on it, birds love. So birds love this guy. The flowers attract tons of pollinators, and it's great for containers also. But yeah, it's a true, really low growing guy. So nice to kind of, if you want something really low. Let's see. Oh, salvia I'm sure you guys are familiar. This is like probably like the most famous group of natives. There's, I think, over 900 species of salvias. So the sages, there's tons of variety here. We're going to talk about it again when we get to shrubs, but That being said, they're kind of known for their fragrance again, like kind of like Artemisia. They just a really sweet smelling group in general. Not sweet in terms of sugary, but just awesome. So yeah, so this group is actually this picture here, because I think on your card it's all of the different salvias. The picture here in the PowerPoint is the Salvia spathaceae, which is the hummingbird sage, and it's one of the nice low growing sages, truly low growing, and it kind of it has these. I wish actually you guys sent photos in our homework. I know we have lots more photos of this that we can refer to. This one just shows the flowering kind of fluorescence, this large stalk that these magenta flowers, and it has this really strong fragrance. But Spathaceae, it blooms in the late winter, so that's kind of nice. It's a nice kind of winter flowering member. And like a lot of sages, you're going to cut the spent flowers back. So say like Salvia clevelandii, all these, you have to cut the flowers back at a certain point, or you don't have to if you want to leave them for bird food. Yeah, and then this one can get issues with powdery mildew. I'm sure if any of you are familiar with it, it can get some issues of that kind of whitish growth on the leaves. They really want some good air circulation. They tend to like this dappled, like part shade situation. There are kind of, I've seen things that say that they like full shade and others that say that they prefer parts. So it might just be who you're talking to and what resource you're referencing. But I tend to see them liking a little bit more like understory, kind of like under a tree that provides a little bit of like dappled light. Let's see, ground covers. Oh, wow, we're already into, okay, so that's ground covers. Okay, maybe like I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. We can go through some questions real quick if we want.
We had a lot of very plant specific questions.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Are you able to see those? Or you want me to read them?
No,
off?
I'm gonna pull it up. I can see it. Hold on.
Hey guys, and I just stepped in, so I can also field some of these questions as we get through. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Tim.
Welcome.
Arctostaphylos has turned black and died on me, so I'm afraid of it. Yeah, that dieback. Tim, actually, if you want to go with that, but I believe a lot of times the dieback can be from overwatering, but I guess it really depends. Tim, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I think manzanitas are definitely one of those, the genus that and Ceanothus, some of these chaparral shrubs, which have huge diversity in California, people often find kind of very problematic, which is why often you see the cultivars kind of doing the best in gardens, because really they've been selected for garden conditions. And a lot of our lilac and manzanita species are really kind of biogeographically specific. Many of those species are endemic. So am I still with you guys? Looks like I've frozen. Okay, so a lot of those are very endemic and have really specific needs. And right in California, again, just like all of these plants, California is a huge place. It's one of the largest states in the union, and it spans such a broad biogeographical spectrum that a lot of these plants, you take them from out of their natural element and you put them in a garden in Southern California, that the issues with overwatering are going to become apparent very quickly. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation of that blackening of the stem and the quick, rapid decline of the plant, even with proper moisture, is typically due to too much moisture in the soil. At Theodore Payne, we're in a very unique and very favorable kind of soil conditions, being right there by the Verdugos. We have basically decomposed granite, very coarse, very well-drained soil. And you notice on most of our manzanitas, if you have been to Theodore Payne Foundation and look on our placards, most of those manzanitas are going to prefer sharp draining soil. And that's why oftentimes you do see manzanitas thriving on rocky hillsides where you're going to have a lot of good drainage, and you're not going to have really saturated soils for a lot of the season. And so if you do have clay soils, if you do expect to water on a more regular basis, which I would say is once every 1 to 2 weeks, kind of depending on your irrigation regime, you want to stick to cultivars that have been tried and true in garden conditions, like Howard McMinn, like Sunset. You take Arctostaphylos glauca, which although it's native to Southern California, that's really going to suffer if you put it in heavy soils or apply moisture on a regular basis, particularly during the summer after it's been established. So the ground cover manzanitas are definitely a little bit more tolerant of water and in fact need more moisture. In Southern California, something like Pacific Mist or Carmel Sur, any of the Arcto Edmundsi cultivars, which there are many, the Uva ursi cultivars, and Uva ursi is one of the circumarboreal manzanitas, meaning that grows in every continent in the Northern Hemisphere. And those are really forest floor plants of higher elevation and more than climb. So they're just naturally acclimated, right, to more moisture. So if you are going to have a garden which you're planning on growing kind of a broader spectrum of plants, picking one that can tolerate a little bit more of that moisture. That's at least been my experience in cultivating manzanitas for the past 10 years at Theodore Payne. But the blackening and very rapid decline, definitely indicative of overwatering. And then with Ceanothus, I kind of have the reverse. I have less luck with lilacs in Sun Valley than I do with manzanitas, and perhaps it's the flip side of that soil issue where there's maybe just a little bit too much drainage, and a lot of our Ceanothus have actually been bred and cultivated in other parts of the world even, but many have been selected for more kind of garden conditions, and we'll probably talk about Ceanothus a little bit later. But I hopefully that answers the manzanita question. Yeah. They can be tricky. We just actually had one not die due to overwatering, but die due to windfall. It got blown over in that really huge windstorm we had.
Thank you. We're gonna in terms of, well, I guess I'll see the rest of these questions. I see I'm starting at the bottom. Oh yeah, Scott, it looks like you answered that. It's just it's kind of like when the red tabs is when the plant I think is the most showy, when it has the most seasonal color. So it could be the flower, it could be its fruit. Some natives have like a really showy seed pod, like Cercocarpus. So it's just kind of the fancy time of year for the plant. Let's see. Oh, Salvia spathaceae with the powdery mildew. Yeah, they kind of have that issue. I mean, for the most part, what I've done and seen is essentially removing the diseased material and even actually cutting it all the way back, and then it usually sprouts back fresh. They can take not all the way back to the ground, but just kind of it can take quite a pruning. So that's what I've seen done. But yeah, there's not a whole lot you can do. The air circulation, I guess, is another one. Making sure that they're not like in an area that's too shady or too crowded with plants. That's another time where you see kind of more of that happening, the more of the mildew. I believe.
And those are good recommendations, Claire. And if you have a very dry garden, Salvia spathaceae will just go completely dormant. I really kind of consider it more of an herbaceous perennial, because if you see it in the wild, it's flowering in April, May. And as soon as you have long extended periods of drought, that plant's just going to disappear. And I actually have that plant at Theodore Payne in maybe 5 or 6 different spots. And the powdery mildew is definitely more prevalent when you have it directly underneath a tree. So the recommendation, putting in a place with good airflow is really important. Also at the edge of the canopy so that it does get more light is one technique. Having it, and just as little summer irrigation as possible to prevent that powdery mildew is going to be key. And we can talk, there is going to be an IPM course. So talking about the pathologies of plants is going to be brought up to some extent later on. But that one, as well as Sonamensis, which is part of the lineage, the parentage of the bee's bliss. Salvia spathaceae isn't the only one that gets powdery mildew. I've seen powdery mildew on a number of other species from Leucophylla, like I said, Sonamensis. It's all about airflow, and sometimes it's just seasonal and it'll go away when it gets hot and dry. So that's always one thing to consider, right? Some of these pathogens, they exist and they eventually go away with the onset of our summer weather patterns.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That sometimes it kind of goes away on its own a bit. Also, the great point about I was trying to indicate that with the Spathaceae, but they kind of like a little dappled light, but they don't like total shade. And I was just saying under a tree, but you're right that like directly under is too much shade probably, and it's a good idea. Like I like that suggestion actually of around the edge of the canopy. That's an easy way to understand it. I guess, yeah, it looks like that's from the questions. We'll just kind of take the questions in chunks. So I'm going to move ahead with shrubs. Back to Arctostaphylos. Oops, excuse me. So yeah, Tim was talking about that, about Arctostaphylos with the Howard McMinn. Wait, I'm sorry, am I in the wrong? Yes, with the Howard McMinn hybrid. That one is a great kind of medium-sized shrub. It's on the list also of easy Arctostaphylos, of easy native plants to SoCal. It kind of just, it's one of the exceptions, and it's also a cultivar, so it tolerates a lot of the kind of average garden conditions. It tolerates overhead watering a little bit even. It can just kind of hang with your standard gardener who's not maybe, super knowledgeable about natives. Clay soil, it even can take a bit of a pruning, which other Arctostaphylos don't like too much pruning, just maybe the dead stuff, but it's great. I think that the Howard McMinn is kind of like the like easy beginner Manzanita. And it is a really good replacement or substitute for like hawthorns or Raphiolepis or whatever that's called. But yeah, that's a great little replacement for that, because it's evergreen and it has those flowers and it just has like a structure to it. So yeah, that's a great one. I think as we talked about earlier with the ground cover Manzanita, birds love them, hummingbirds love the flowers. Pollinators, it's like they're great for wildlife, and the bark thing, everybody loves that like red iconic kind of Arctostaphylos bark. Oh, and then there's I think still on that, there's not a separate slide for it, but the larger kind of tree Arctostaphylos are, wait, do I have a slide for it? I don't think I do. No, but anyway, there are some larger tree forms. So the ones that I was just talking about, like Howard McMinn, is kind of in the like 5 to 6 feet wide and high range, which is, kind of a large shrub. But obviously for those, a lot of you actually sent in some really nice photos of the more tree formed Manzanita. And there are several varieties of those that go from like 8 feet to 15 feet high, and then also there's upright form ones or, kind of larger, wider bodied ones. But those, there's like, actually Tim mentioned, there's the Glauca, which is the big berry Manzanita, but it really does prefer kind of interior dry situations. And then there's Manzanita I guess that's the other thing, guys. My Latin pronunciation, it's a dead language, so I don't try to do it right. But forgive me, because I do know other people have their own pronunciation, but I kind of do it phonetically. So hopefully you can just write it or remember it based off of how I say it phonetically. But the A. perriei, that one is the kind of the native kind of counterpart to the big berry manzanita. So it's like the Northern California version. So it tends to do better on the coast and things like that. And there's quite a few cultivars from that one, from Paris. So that one it tolerates kind of heavier soils and things like that, because it is from, like Tim was kind of saying, each of them have their locale that they're native to. So they're native to conditions like those areas. So the glauca or something would be, you're really going to be putting that in areas that are dry slope, southern slope kind of areas. And the other manzanitas that are maybe from Northern California would need to be in like a maybe partial shade zone, or maybe a little more coastal, or something that's a little more protected from like our blasting heat here in SoCal. So I think Louis Edmonds is probably, which is Arctostaphylos backeri, and Louis Edmonds, I think, is kind of the tallest upright one with that kind of that really dark, beautiful bark. And there's a lot of beautiful photos of it in any, I think, like in almost all the native plant books. But anyway, so there's a lot of options here that they have in your card for different kind of tree options for Arctostaphylos.
One of the ones that I have found to be kind of, and I think that's a really good point, Claire, and I think we'll probably discuss Calscape to a certain extent, like looking at the range of a species, and look at a plant, this isn't a manzanita, but look at a plant like Heteromles arbutifolia. It's definitively one of the most garden-friendly and easy to grow plants of the chaparral shrub community, and it has a huge range. And my kind of philosophy is that the broader range a plant has, likely more garden friendly it will be, because it can already take a much broader natural range of conditions: soil, sunlight, precipitation, summer heat. And so, like Heteromles, huge range, really garden friendly plant. Arctostaphylos manzanita, while there are many subspecies of that Arctostaphylos, just the straight Arctostaphylos manzanita, which we make available at Theodore Payne, I have found that it does well in almost every spot that I put it at the foundation. It is a very large form, like an 8 to 12 foot species that can handle full sun. I put it in partial shade under a pine tree and it's happy. I've used it as like an informal hedge in some spots, as more like a closely planted hedge in others. So, and if you looked at Arctostaphylos manzanita on CalFlora, you'll see that it has a huge range within the state. And so again, kind of indicating its broad range of tolerances.
Nice. Yeah, so just moving through Ceanothus is like, as we talked about it already, it's a ground cover, but as a medium shrub, obviously it's kind of between 6 feet high to like 8 feet wide, that kind of medium shrub range. It has all the same benefits that the ground cover has. So actually it says fragrant, I think, for those honey, like the kind of honey scented flowers. Though it's not fragrant to me like an Artemisia, so I would beg to differ, but it is fragrant when you get up to close to the flowers. Let's see, what notes do I have on here? Yeah, you have a lot of these varieties that are selections that for medium shrubs. Concha here, which is the tolerates alkaline soils. That one, Skylark is good for like kind of small compact spaces, even though it's still kind of a larger one. It's just like a smaller compact one, because a lot of the Ceanothus, they just get real big and shrubby. Snowball is one of the early bloomers, kind of blooms in January, early for the Ceanothus, and it has white flowers. So Snowball is one if you want white flowers and kind of the early blooming things. It's also nice to always plan your gardens to have kind of something flowering all year long. So knowing when things are flowering, and that's why I really like those red tabs, knowing when there's something showy for your plants so that you don't have everybody flowering in springtime. You have it kind of spread out. So Ceanothus, I believe, yeah, as a tall shrub, you can have like, let's see, yeah. I mean, this one I think is kind of a no-brainer. The easy one in this group and category would be Ray Hartman. And it gets big, it has those dark leaves, it's pretty fast growing, it's kind of, yeah, it's a cultivar that just kind of would be the easier one that can tolerate more conditions. So it's really great for garden situations. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's like pretty helpful. I mean, let's see, we'll go to the next one. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I don't want to get too stuck on them because we also have the other PowerPoint of your guys's. So Cercocarpus, wow, this one is like my fave. I love her. She's beautiful. And mostly this photo doesn't really show it as well as the photo on your cards, but this is an example of the showy, seasonal showy thing that is the seed. It's actually the tail of the seed that makes that kind of ghostly, really beautifully backlit situation with the Cercocarpus. These are really long-lived. They're actually nitrogen fixers. So they're good for restoration projects and erosion control, like they go hand in hand. I actually read somewhere that they're a good substitute for bamboo because they're kind of upright growing, but I've never tried that myself, so I can't speak to it. But when I was looking through notes, I saw that. So that might be a good substitute there for that. They can take a pruning pretty well. Well, actually, you just want to be thinning unwanted branches, but you can coppice them once they're more established. Oh, I guess we're just jumping. Okay, so we go from, this is, yeah, I guess Enselia. Enselia is a shrub. We were kind of talking about trees a second there a little bit, but I guess Enselia, also really easy. This one is kind of a sprawling, shrubby thing that is, it's one of the sunflowers that are really nice. So it's a great substitute for something like that, or people that are looking for kind of the sunflower look that a lot of people love to have in their garden. There's kind of two varieties. There's the Enselia californica and the Enselia farinosa. And the farinosa is kind of more desert. Well, it's from desert areas. And then the californica is more coastal native. So again, you keep that in mind in where you're planting them. And let's see, yeah, exactly. So you want to do the farinosa in the kind of drier, hotter situations, more inland, and then this Enselia. And they both have this beautiful sunflowers. The farinosa kind of has that silvery leaf look to it, and these have like just kind of a little more demure green leaf that's not as exciting as the silver one. Sorry, guys, I don't have the best vocabulary for. I wish I had like really fancy vocabulary for talking about plants, but.
I would also make a plug for some of the Baja species. Enselia ventorum is a huge plant with deeply lobed leaves. They're like very lacy like, and it's kind of a bright green, almost like a succulent leaf. And Enselias are also, if you're putting a little bit of moisture on the garden early on, they're kind of one of the first things to wake up and flower really quickly.
Right.
And so they're just like easy, quick gratification plants.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also need quite a bit of deadheading. Obviously, they produce a lot of those sunflowers, so you want to be deadheading those, and you can also cut them back once they've flowered to just produce more vigorous growth and more flowers the next time around. I think they have they have 2 flowering seasons, right? I think it's Enselia californica that has the kind of flowers. Yeah, here it has the spring and the fall. So that's also kind of nice. It's not just a one and done thing. Eriogonum, wow, yeah. Like Eriogonum, we know there's just several different members in this genus, lots of different sizes, habits, the different flowering types and leaf types. It's got a lot of different members. So it's kind of hard to, a lot of you guys submitted California fasciculatum, or sorry, Eriogonum fasciculatum, so California buckwheat. So I'm assuming a lot of you are familiar with the California buckwheat, but there's also more. I know there was a photo of St. Catherine's lace, which is the, wait, was it? No, sorry, not St. Catherine's lace. Somebody, what was the one someone posted? The Santa Cruz Island buckwheat. Someone submitted that photo. Anyway, yeah, the flowers, great for tons of pollinators are always around them, and birds love them. Quails kind of like to go underneath them. There's so many options here. You have the smaller ones like the Grande arborescens, the red flowered buckwheat, which is like got that nice like kind of magenta bright flower, and it's kind of like a little hedgehog shrub that's small. And then you have your larger ones like the fasciculatum that can get really large, or like Werner Little, which is like large but kind of short, almost like a ground cover. Yeah, Eriogonum just has so many options. Like, and to me, it's just like, you got to have one of those in a native garden to like make it a California native plant garden. But I guess I'm biased. Let's see.
One thing I will say, this is just like an insider's tip. For Eriogonum grande rubescens, the red flowering buckwheat or the San Miguel Island buckwheat, again, a huge genus, just like the manzanitas. It's all about the endemism and our diverse biogeography kind of driving this evolutionary speciation process, where we have so many different kinds of buckwheats. There's like over 200 or something. But we source our seed from a seed purveyor who specifically cultivates the dark red form of the grande rubescens. So a lot of times you'll buy a grande rubescens and you'll expect a nice red flower, and it'll bloom and it'll be kind of like this washed out sad pink. So we offer that through Theodore Payne, the dark flower form. So if you are looking for that really dark red flower, inquire with your plant nursery or whoever you're buying from and see if they can't assure you that it's the dark flower form, because occasionally I've just been disappointed buying some and they turn out not to be super dark red. And if your client's really looking for that dark form, you're going to want to really make sure that you source that dark seed, the dark flower.
That's a great hot tip. I guess I've always been lucky. I haven't seen the washed out ones, but that's a good hot tip. Also, a lot of them kind of have especially with California buckwheat, they kind of have these brittle branches a bit. So especially when they're small, you just want to think about placement sometimes, like maybe not in a high traffic zone, because you can break into the harder wood, and they don't really want tons of that, like breakage and whatnot. And yeah, actually too, they're good for floral arrangements, like fresh and dry. As you guys know, buckwheats, fasciculatum has that like white flower that goes to kind of the rusty color. So they could do great in dry and fresh floral arrangements. Gambelia, oh yeah, which used to be Galvaceae, or yes, okay. This one's great. Hummingbirds, obviously it has that kind of that long flower that hummingbirds love. And it's a great, let's see. Yeah, it's adaptable. It's also on the easy list. It does really well in kind of a lot of different conditions, and it flowers for a lot of the year. So you're just getting tons of these flowers, and hummingbirds really love them. The Baja bush snapdragon is the one that's kind of more for like hot, dry inland conditions, just a little more heat tolerant. And yeah, this one I just have notes as it being pretty adaptable. Some of them are kind of cold sensitive, but it's definitely an easy one. And hummingbirds are like such a fan of these kind of things, along with epilobium. Yeah, I don't really have much on that one. I guess we could take a break here just to or we could go a couple more. Let's see, 5:45. Let's go to 6. Do you guys want to go till 6, or do people want to do a break?
6.
Okay, I heard a 6, so let's keep going. Heteromeles arbudifolia, Toyon. This one I feel like this plant is one of those where when you first introduce the native plants, it's like, whatever. And then over time, it's like you fall in love with it. It's just such a striking, lovely evergreen bush, a shrub, and it can get really large. It can be a screen, it can be like a privacy screen type thing, or just a big backdrop. And it's also considered an easy one on that list that you guys have. Birds love it. There's all those red fruit that you can see. It's just lovely. And then it's got that other name of like Christmas berry, because of these, as you guys have probably seen, the fruit that's kind of put on around this time of year, a little bit before, around Christmas time. So yeah, this one also can take quite a bit of pruning, like you can prune it back a bit if you want to keep it a little bit smaller. And it is kind of weak in the first couple years though. Like the first couple years of its establishment, Toyon can be a little bit like leggy and not really look like it's making it. And then it might just shoot up from the bottom and then grow from the roots below. So it can be a little bit, yeah, I guess weak is the best way to put it in the first couple years, but it becomes very robust and it's just like a great kind of multi-truck species, that kind of bush species. There's also a golden variety that I believe is on your note on your cards. Yeah, Davis Gold is a selection that has the kind of yellow berries if you want that. But Christmas, man, you want the Christmas berry. Birds, yep, got that. Let's go to the next one. Prunus. Prunus ilicifolia. Well, Prunus, I guess, is the genus, but you have Prunus ilicifolia, like the Catalina cherry, which is Lyone, and then there's the ilicifolia, which is the holly leaf cherry. And the holly leaf cherry kind of has those a little bit more holly-like kind of serrated, pokey leaves. And I believe the ilicifolia, the holly leaf cherry, is on the kind of easy list. And the fruit is, I mean, I've actually had some that are really nice and sweet, but several of them have kind of like a bitter aftertaste. They don't have a ton of meat on them. Birds obviously love them. But yeah, the fruit is, the seeds are toxic because they have like these cyanide components. So you might not want to like eat a ton of them. But they are just a nice tree, kind of like a tree bush. Well, I believe actually it says here, yeah, the Catalina cherry is kind of the upright one or the small tree, and then the holly leaf cherry is more of a rounded shrub, but I would still consider like a rounded tree. They can get very large. And there is quite a bit of diversity in terms of the range of size, or sorry, there's quite a bit of range on the size with these guys. And yeah, they can tolerate some shade. They like sun. They're pretty heat tolerant. They're really, yeah, I'm a fan. The next one we have is Rhus. There's quite a few different, well, there's a couple, like a handful of Rhus. There's Integrifolia ovata, which is, Integrifolia is a lemonade berry, and it has that like kind of soury berry. And then the sugar bush. They hybridize really easily, and so they're commonly kind of mixed, well, they're commonly kind of mixed up, and also I find that there's not a lot of difference in the nursery trade, but out in the wild, they look a little bit different, but unless they're hybridizing the two populations. But yeah, really large, nice big shrub. The drought tolerant. The Integrifolia is more, it's from more of a coastal area. So it can handle kind of like some salt spray, and it does want a little bit of a more coastal situation. Whereas the sugar bush, the ovata, is more dry kind of canyons, inland, more chaparral. So, and they're both actually known to be pretty fire resistant, and the leaves, they kind of give it away, that kind of like big, that thick waxy leaf. Fire resistant is not fireproof, obviously, but they are resistant. Good for erosion control.
Yeah.
What are you gonna add?
Yeah, I was just gonna add a couple things. If yeah, so definitely hybridize and seed collected in gardens where you might have both species occurring are definitely gonna oftentimes contain, you know, dual lineages, like, you know, two species, and be a hybrid. At Theodore Payne, we try to collect as much of our seed from wild sources as possible, so that, you know, we're collecting from solid large populations to ensure that what you're actually getting is the true form and the true type. I can't speak highly enough about Rhuses. Their tolerance of heat, even during these like extreme peak 120-degree days in Sun Valley, they just act like nothing's wrong. Rhus ovata is probably one of my favorite plants. And two other Rhuses, I don't know if these are mentioned in our flashcards. Well, probably one of them isn't. Rhus lentii, which, although it's not a true native, it's the Baja sumac, or the pink flowering sumac. If anyone's traveled our gardens, we have two really large specimens at the top of our road, which have grown really fast. And if you're not in a frost prone area, these are awesome screens, hedges. They serve the same exact purpose as the lemonade berry and the sugar bush, except they have a much grayer foliage. They're not serrated at all, and they have bright pink flowers, almost like a Ribes sanguineum or like just a real acid pink, and then similarly colored fruits, which look exactly like a lemonade berry fruit. And they're related to poison oak. They're all in the Anacardiaceae family, which is also the family of, macadamia nuts and mangoes. It's a really awesome, interesting plant family, as well as the other one, and which is Rhus aromatica, which I don't know if that's also in the flashcards. But if you love poison oak like I do, but don't want it in the garden because you're scared, Rhus aromatica, or I can't remember its common name, is a really good alternative because it gets a little bit of that fall color. It's a deciduous shrub, and its inflorescences, even when nascent and before it blooms, is really beautiful. And it's an arching, spreading, kind of lower growing plant that really works for bank stabilization, as do the other Rhuses. But just a great genus overall. Such resilient plants. Can't speak highly of them enough. And Theodore Payne is one of the only places that produces Rhus lentii, to my knowledge, in large enough volumes and in large sizes for kind of more landscape.
Awesome. I'm glad you emphasized how great they are, because they are great. And
I love them.
Yeah, they like toy on, I think, for me. They're easy, and they're also just they can be used they're just such a good backdrop for things, and just so standard, and like Tim said, like heat tolerant, and they can handle some pruning. They're just really generous in their ability to hang. Let's see. Ribes, yeah, let's do these two more, and then we'll take a break. So Ribes, you have currants and gooseberries, and the currants are the thornless ones, and then gooseberries have the thorns. And to be fair, I don't have that much experience cultivating and maintaining Ribes, though I see them in the wild and I get excited. But yeah, I have here, they're kind of a shade, partial shade. However, there are some varieties that can hang with the sun also. We have a bunch of different varieties listed here. This is golden currant in the photo of, of the PowerPoint, not on the flashcards. And this one is like a nice yellow flower, and yellow fruit that kind of goes dark. And it just kind of makes these like thickets. So you could espalier it, you could train it. Actually, several of them kind of grow like that, so you could espalier them. There's most of them kind of they're pretty. They can be fragrant. They have they're good ground cover, partial shade, or full sun. Actually no, I think there's only one evergreen one, which it's here. Yeah, the viburnifolium, which is the Catalina perfume, which is a fragrant one, and it's the only evergreen. And so the rest you want to be planning for either having something in front of it that can hide its kind of like more drab period of the year, or just like having that in mind, or espalier or something like that. So chaparral currant, I think is on your picture. Oh no. You have, actually, Tim, if you want to chime in on Ribes, I know you're more of a fan and know much more about them if you want to.
Yeah, Ribes are great plants, and what you have alluded to is definitely true, right? We have probably the most popular Ribes, the viburnifolium, which is really, I think it grows more in Southern California, and I believe on the islands and into Baja. And it's really a great understory plant, right? The situations where you're getting the powdery mildew on the Spathacia, Ribes viburnifolium is going to be able to tolerate that full underneath an oak condition without having any pathogens. And it's great for those kind of under oak conditions because it really doesn't need summer water. It'll stay green throughout the summer. and you're not gonna, you know, cause any detriment to your oak because you're not going to be watering to maintain that health. The flowers on Ribes viburnifolium are probably the flip side of, you know, its beauty year round with its evergreen nature, is that the flowers are a little bit inconspicuous. It has a very small flower for the Grossulariaceae family, which what these are all in that family. It's probably like the least showy flower of the gooseberries and currants, with some of the more, you know, the deciduous ones like Ribes aureum, which is a locally growing species, really brilliant colors. And the flower, you can see in this picture, the flower bud is red, opens, it's yellow, and as it's fading, it turns back to red. The fruits go from yellow to, or from green, pardon, to yellow to red to purple. It's probably the only fruit that I am really actually like picking and eating at work, because it really does taste really, really good, and you get a little protein boost from the worm that's inside every single one of them. So that's a little bonus. And then the other local one, which I love, is the Ribes speciosa, which is the, maybe that's chaparral gooseberry or fuchsia flowered gooseberry, again, the common name. That's a really thorny, really mean plant. It's one of those plants that you're going to notice if you're pruning it or handling it, because it has thorns and prickles all over the plant, pretty extreme, but that has a really showy flower.
Yeah, there's a picture of the flower guys on your flashcards, and you can see it's like super exciting.
Yeah. And so you have other species, and I tend to think of them, you know, there's Quercatorum, which grows in higher elevations. There is Cinerarium, the wax currant, which is really more high elevation. We have the Sierra gooseberry. But there's also some other species that grow locally, Californicum and several others. We will offer Nevadense, which is a currant, I believe, Roselii, which is one of the currants, and they vary in size and form, but typically they're going to have that kind of dangling flower, kind of an upside down flower, which are really beautiful. And all really, the fruits is one of the other really attractive parts of that whole genus, is that they have this really otherworldly flower, which turns into this bountiful fruit, which is obviously going to bring in an enormous amount of habitat. So yeah, gooseberry, shade, really more shade dominant species. But you know, versatile plants, which are kind of unique specimens in the garden.
Nice.
We have a question. Are all currants and gooseberries edible, non-poisonous? I am not positive. I'm not sure on that. I would guess yes, but
yeah,
it's always a gamble.
It's a gamble. Yeah, actually we can let's just finish up this last, this is the last kind of the shrubs, and then we can go over some of the questions and take a break kind of all together. Salvia we talked about as a ground cover. As a shrub, obviously there are tons of varieties. It's just like a staple of the garden. And again, the aromatic aspect of it is kind of the big draw, and pollinators love all of that. Those like lavender blue flowers, though there are other colors like pinks and whatnot. You have, many of you guys submitted the white sage, Salvia appiana, and the Salvia clevelandii. So that was like, those are, I think, the most common ones. And so that's why we saw quite a few of the photos there. But yeah, those clevelandii is a great substitute for lavender. Or, I mean, honestly, any of the sages, I think you could substitute for the lavender. But basically, if somebody just wants something aromatic, I know here I get asked a lot, people want lavender, but they want some, and they just can't think of an alternative. And it's like, sages, man, that's the deal. Winifred Gilman is the kind of, I guess is the one that's known for the best kind of smell, I guess, the most aromatic. It's cultivated for its smell. Let's see. Oh, black sage. That was another one. Someone submitted a black sage. It's just kind of I think what I've heard is they got their name that way because when it dries, it like the flower stalk gets all black and it just kind of looks dark and black like that. It's not the showiest one, but it is it's very adaptable. The mellifera, the black sage. Yeah, there's so much to say about sages. I think one of the main things in terms of maintenance is pruning back or deadheading those flower stalks. With the white sage, you can prune the stalks back to like the newest kind of leaf bud, so that it can start growing from there. Oops, it can start growing from the like leaf nodes. They also white sage doesn't really do well with summer water, doesn't really want much of that. So you might want to put it on an area of your garden or like the zone that's not getting summer watered. Also, when it's new, you can do the kind of pinching back. A lot of the sages, you can pinch them back when they're new in the garden to like encourage a more rounded habit, instead of just planting it in the ground and leaving whatever form it came in. You can actually pinch it back so that it starts to branch off more. Again, with those, you pinch back to the nodes and then they start to branch off from there. Yeah, so let's, do you guys want to take a break and come back with questions, or let's see, or we can.
Break is good.
Let's take a break. It's 6:01. Let's take a 5-minute break, because we do have the other what's it called, PowerPoint with all your guys' homework. So let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at let's say 6:07, since it's not quite 6. Yeah, let's come back at 6:07.
Hi.
I don't want. Will you do this? Do you mind passing me? Thank you.
I'm giving plugs to the annual salvias in the text box. Everyone loves chia. The one that I've never been able to grow is Salvia funerea, which is a limestone endemic.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like white with pretty small leaves. It's kind of like a peridily, like the rock daisies or whatever. It'll just like it's just like growing out of rocks. And sometimes if anyone's like gone through Death Valley, one of the coolest walks or drives you can do is Titus Canyon. It's amazing. It's just like this 20-foot wide canyon. At some points it only gets to like 10 feet. You just like look up on the wall and there's just like a Salvia funerea just like spilling out of this wall with these like acid blue flowers and white foliage, and it's just really cool. Funeral sage. Plus it's got a badass name, Funeral Sage.
That is pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. I've unsuccessfully tried to do a sage garden at my salvia, like all salvias, at my last house. So I want to try to accomplish that at some point here. I moved in January, my new house.
Nice. How was moving during the pandemic?
I moved last January, so I moved right before the pandemic. Yeah, so that was it. My timing worked out fairly well. But I picked up a bunch of plants from you guys at the sale a couple months ago, and so this is actually helpful for me, because now I'm learning how I actually should have planted them, and should have looked at where I placed them as opposed to what I actually did now. So I'm learning.
Yeah, salvias, they're great plants, and some can be a little tricky, but I think for the most part they're givers. They're gonna grow pretty quickly that first year. They're always gonna flower a lot. If people are still on this one, probably the salvia I'm most excited about currently is a salvia that was introduced by Mike Evan from Tree of Life Nursery, and it's called Salvia Japatul with a J, Japatul. It's named for the road that he found it on, and it's a hybrid of Apiana and Clevelandii. And for in my opinion, you know, a lot of the Clevelandii leucophylla hybrids all look, you know, it's pretty darn similar, except for the Winifred Gilman, which does have like almost darker leaves. It does smell like the most pungent, and it has the darkest purple flower of all the hybrids. But the Hapatul has like a really light purple flower, and the structure is a little bit more Apiani. And it's just very distinctive. But what's kind of, you know, there's two sides of a coin. So that Mike told me that the area that he found it in is most likely all burned. So the original plant's gone, but we just took like 400 cuttings today of that plant because we have a couple in the garden. And we did have like 40 available at the sale. And anyone who came up to me and talked about plants, I was like, yeah, buy that. And so they all left. They all got sold. So we don't have any left right now.
They'll grow well from the clippings.
Yeah, so that's the only way to reproduce a cultivar is to produce it vegetatively. So that's either dividing it if it's a, you know, a rhizomatous or clumping spreading plant, or if it's a shrub or a bush or whatever, we do it through little clippings, exactly, and we root them out in some media. We offer a little like propagation class at TPF, and it's pretty fun.
Do you do the softwood or the hardwood for the sage?
It's green yet firm.
Okay.
It's not like almost none of our cuttings are ever done when like the material is actually brown. It's green yet firm. BRB.
Thank you.
So it looks like Tim's answered most of the questions in the chat, so that's good. I don't see any other ones.
When we see the recording, can we see the whole chat as well?
Ben, yeah, do you know?
I don't think it saves the chat, embeds it in the recording. I think it just does the video. We do typically, the chat is saved afterwards for us. So Claire, I can send you all those chats, if there's questions, especially as we kind of evaluate what we want to work into the course. If there's common themes and stuff, we can include those, but it doesn't save it into the recording.
Yeah, because Tim has a lot of nice notes and my computer went off, and when you come back on, all the chat is gone. It starts over.
Yeah.
So it'd be really nice to get and I know there's a way that you can save the chat.
No, it automatically saves it. It just saves
okay.
it locally. So I have it in a document. You did.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we can just email it to everyone.
I can do that.
I guess, yeah. So it looks like we're now at 6:07. We have a few, we're just going to do trees and some perennials, and then we'll do some homework review. So Quercus, oaks. So super obviously iconic keystone species in California. So much wildlife relies on this plant. So it's great if you have the space to be able to put this in. There's the agrifolia is the evergreen kind of representative, and it's huge. Obviously, I think if you look at the icon, it's actually really funny on the flashcards. There's just a tiny little person. But yeah, there's the semi-deciduous and fully deciduous or winter deciduous ones. So there's like the Quercus lobata and the Quercus engelmannii, which is the Engelmann oak, and that one's semi-deciduous. So you want to prune these if you are pruning them at all when they're dormant, which would be winter for deciduous ones and then late summer, early fall for evergreen. But it really should be minimal pruning. You don't want to be pruning these regularly, especially because that's just an entry point for pests and things like that. And I'm sure you guys know, but there's lots of different pests that prey on oaks, which we might probably talk about in the IPM class. So, but yeah, so oaks, I mean, there's so much to say about them. I feel like actually, and several of you guys sent photos of them too in your homework. So oaks are good, guys. And okay, so perennials are I'm assuming everyone knows the difference, but perennials are, as opposed to an annual, like an annual is like a wildflower that just comes up and it completes its life cycle in a year. So it's up and dead in like within a year's time. And you would be reseeding an annual, whereas a perennial is something that keeps coming back year after year, or it's not, I don't mean keeps coming back, like it dies back to the ground and comes up, though some of them do. Some of them are just, perennial just means like your trees are perennials too. So it just means something that's long-lived essentially and completes its lifetime over a longer span. So these perennials are kind of like non-shrubby perennials. So Achillea millefolium, which is yarrow or common yarrow, is a great like filler, and it has those lovely, the picture on the PowerPoint doesn't show it so much, but actually several of you sent photos of really beautiful foliage of this. So they have that beautiful kind of feathery foliage. So really nice textural addition, and also low growing kind of shrubby guy. Really great. It can be used as a lawn alternative, and it's in your lawn replacement guide, I think from day one. But yeah, so a yarrow is a great kind of, you can do it from seed. You can, obviously do potted plants too, but they kind of spread underground. They have this kind of rhizomatous rooting, so they can spread really well, and that's why it makes a good lawn essentially. And they can take a little bit of moderate traffic. People mow them too, not like, it's not like a standard turf, but it's a moderate trafficked kind of lawn alternative. They have a white to pink flowers. In fact, there's lots of varieties, lots of different colors, but they can get kind of muddy, I think. So I think I would stick maybe kind of like what Tim was talking about earlier, like sticking with a variety, that the color will be bright, because they can get to this like kind of muddy kind of color that's not so hot. But the whites and the pinks are really nice. Oh, deadheading those, you guys definitely want to be deadheading those. They kind of have this like stalk of the flower that comes up, and then they get to this rusty kind of brown eventually, and you would be deadheading those on the reg. And if it was a lawn, you could just be kind of mowing it back. You can divide them to spread them also, because of this rhizomatous growing feature. You can, dig them up, take out part of it, and plant it somewhere else if you want to keep spreading it around. Like I said, I think it's just a really good filler, and it it grows pretty quickly. Dudleya is lots of different succulents, or lots of different Dudleyas to choose from, and they're a succulent they really want good drainage, so they do well. Even I think of this photo, it's on a kind of like a vertical situation, so they do well in like a rock wall or some kind of well-draining space. And they don't like a ton of water, though they're like all juicy looking. They really don't, they save their water up in their leaves, so they don't need a bunch in terms of irrigation. They really like, I think we have two varieties that are, Bretonii. Someone sent that, I believe, like actually maybe there's a couple of pictures from the homework. This one has that really, I believe it has a really like white, chalky look to it, so it's very stunning. And yeah, these are nice little placements with rocks and all sorts of things. I think snails and slugs and even like squirrels eat them, so that's something that you might want to keep in mind. They can handle part shade, like sun. Dudleyas, man. I mean, it's really a nice replacement for anyone who just like really wants a succulent garden. Epilobium, such a fan. They're great like late fall, late summer, late fall bloomers. So again, there's not a ton of plants that are blooming in late summer, but they're a great one, and they have that bright kind of orange to magenta-y colors in their flowers, and hummingbirds obviously love them with that shape again. Hummingbirds love that shaped type flower. There's low growing ones, and there's even kind of a taller growing one that gets up to like 3 feet high. So they're 1 to 3 feet high, and there's several varieties for every little niche and need that you want. On honestly, yeah, you can find something that grows better in shade or better in clay soils. There's a variety of epilobium out there probably for you. And they the one thing though is they have this big showy thing, and then they kind of look dead and like they get all dried up. And you can cut these back almost to the ground, not the first year, but once they're established, you can cut them all the way back to the ground, or essentially, and just leave like a couple inches, and then they fill back out pretty quickly. So
the other thing I just want to add on,
Definitely.
the other reason why you want to cut them back right after they flowered is that they're prolific seeders and they're wind dispersed seed. And honestly, at the foundation, they're a nuisance plant because they just will reseed and come up everywhere and really invade an area. And they're all rhizomatous, meaning they'll spread by underground roots. And that's why you can cut them all the way to the ground once they've established and you see fresh growth coming from the soil. So oftentimes once they're in there, then you'll have to like physically fully take them out. And so just reducing the seed bank in your garden is really important if you don't want it spreading around. And it's one of those really quick to establish plants. So if you have a brand new garden and a bunch of fuchsias in there and there's not a lot of canopy cover, that species is going to take advantage of that opportunity to colonize a garden. So just, we'll talk about that with the maintenance class, but it's one of the points I try to drive home multiple times because they are aggressive reseeders. All you have to do is drive or walk along our permeable paver road at Theodore Payne. There's like an epilobium in every little 1 square inch of the gravel hole in the permeable paver. And so, yeah, they're awesome and aggro.
That's a good way to put them. Yeah, that's a good point. They can be very weedy. I guess I just like it when it depends on what you want. So if you need the filler, they're great. But if you don't want the filler, they're terrible. So next is Erigeron glaucus, which is seaside daisy. And just within the common name itself, it's a coastal native. So they're going to want some part shade inland and do really well in full shade on the coast. And they're good for that, like that kind of daisy flower is great for pollinators, and also folks that just want something that's kind of standard and looks a little more lushy green and it's low growing. This is a great option. It's on the easy list also. It is very easy, and just the thing of maybe not inland, and if it is inland, it would need some part shade. And then you can deadhead the spent flowers to extend the flowering periods. And they have a very long flowering period, but if you just want to extend it a little further and get new growth, they're great for that. So super easy, generous option. Next is, I think this is, penstemon. Lots of different penstemons here. This is like a really large group of perennials. And I think actually your photo in your deck is a little more helpful because this is just a close-up of one. But they have a stalk of several of these like little, like, I don't know how you describe that, funny open-mouthed flowers. And yeah, I think the most garden tolerant one that is like the one of the nursery trade is the Margarita Bop, the Penstemon heterophyllus Margarita Bop. And it's just the most reliable in a garden setting. I think the rest of them are going to want a little bit faster draining soils and can be a little bit pickier, but they want sun. They want some full sun. I think Margarita Bop is like the most adaptable, but the rest of them are kind of sun loving, and they have these beautiful flowers, and they're good low kind of small option, though their flowers get to be like 1 to 3 feet tall on the stalk, but they're nice low kind of filler option. Next, and finally, grasses. So many options with grasses, as you guys know. Several of you sent in the photos of deer grass. So I know you guys are probably all familiar, and it's very easy. Yeah, there's a varied and tons of options here. There's just, grasses are great. I think I was really late to the grass game. And so I didn't they're just such a great texture to add to a garden. And I think I just was really slow to realizing that, unfortunately. But here you have, on the top, you have Elmis Canyon Price, I believe, and then, or Elmis Condensata, and then the low barley in the top right corner, which I'm not familiar with. So Tim, you can add points to that. And then the deer grass in the bottom right corner of the PowerPoint. And you have tons of little photos, I think. Oh no, there's just the one, the deer grass in your deck of cards. But yeah, they're just good for composition, good for like hiding anything if you want to kind of block something, or and great with like, they're just great all around. You guys know how grasses work, but there's lots of options. You can have ones that grow in full sun to a little bit of partial shade. And then I think the only thing I would maybe bring up is there's like cool, like knowing the cool versus warm season grasses. So the cool season ones are going to like have their green period during the wintry period, so our cooler period, and then the warm seasons will be kind of dormant in the winter and then a green up in the summer. So it's just kind of, you might want to be aware of that only when, especially when you're like designing or putting, you know, knowing what plant is going to be dormant when. So deer grass would be like a warm season one. So is the purple 3 on the and Spirabolus aroides. Those are all warm season grasses. And then you're like California fescue and the purple needle grass are kind of cool season grasses. And yeah, there's, I mean, I know Tim, you're like a grass fan, so I almost am like, you should take the wheels there. But I definitely love Spirabolus aroides. That one's a beautiful, like it's kind of seeding fluorescence is another nice, lovely thing that's when it's backlit. But there is a grass for kind of every situation. Yeah.
Totally. And so my kind of perspective on grasses is that they are good filler. Often people are using them for that architectural rigid leaf. You know, you can get a lot of color out of grasses, from the blue greens to the rusty yellows and oranges and reds of the summer. My kind of design philosophy is that there's so much winter interest and spring interest in California native gardens, where a lot of people really drop the ball is on stuff that really looks cool in the summer and fall. I mean, again, this is the quintessential, like, looks awesome in the spring, what's going on later in the season, because you've relied so much on spring bloomers and, you know, drought deciduous shrubs and perennials to make your garden look cool, which is fantastic. But from a design perspective, a lot of the, you know, you need that like continuum of aesthetic draw throughout the season. And that's why, from my perspective, the warm season grasses add so much to the California native garden, because so much of them are really doing their thing June, July, August, September, when a lot of other things are really taking a back seat. And so you already kind of alluded to them, the Spirabolus. So we have, which literally means, well, it means seed thrower. So those Spirabolus literally kind of eject their seed out. And you spoke about the aroides, which is the alkali Sacaton. So also alkaline tolerant. So if you have really salty soils, the Spirabolus are really good. You see that kind of growing in these salt beds in the desert. And the cousin of that, Spirabolus wrightii, is a really large, probably one of our bigger grasses. The seed stalks get, 6 feet tall, kind of a tighter bunch, but really still has interest right now in the garden, still remaining those seed heads all the way into late winter. But yeah, Aristida, it has really beautiful color. The Boutelouas are great. There's Bouteloua curtipendula, Bouteloua gracilis, the blue grama grass, which can also be used as a lawn alternative, which is really nice, knowing that there are native grasses which can be used as lawn alternatives. Most of what you're going to see in the lawn alternative market, especially if you're looking for sod that you can roll out and install, is going to be the cool season mix of fescues. So SNS produces a sod there, which is basically a combination of Idahoensis, Occidentalis, and Rubra Malate, kind of a seed blend, which gives you a nice green appearance, although you're definitively going to have to water that in the summer to keep it looking good, whereas the warm season grasses often selected from more desert regions are hyper tolerant of drought. So again, in my opinion, the warm season grasses kind of have a shorter duration of dormancy and just kind of look cooler at really times of year when there is less of a draw of aesthetic interest in the garden. Not to say that there aren't amazing cool season grasses. Obviously, Lama's Canyon Prince is unlike every other native plant garden and is a great plant and does really well in a wide range of conditions. And if you're really going for that authentic Southern California meadow, really you would probably be using the stipas mixed in with other herbaceous perennials and annuals. But yeah, grasses are great landscape plants for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, in high fire dangers, you have to be really cognizant of your maintenance regime, which we're going to talk about in the pruning when and how to prune both cool season and warm season grasses. And the one other one that you can use for a lawn alternative, which I've seen is really cool, is that's the San Diego bent grass, the Agrostis pallens, which is really nice. And just as an aside too, I think there's a lot of room for exploration of native bunch grasses, even beyond what's already available to the gardener. But that's a job for botanists and horticulturists to keep exploring that world. But I think just perusing what's out there in our natural wildlands, I think there's a lot of really cool plants, because everyone knows there's so many invasive grasses that have been introduced as from the horticulture world. So the more we can use native grasses to kind of replace the panacetum and the feather grasses of the world, the better.
Nice. Let's see. Oh yeah, so that's all of the natives, but we have a little in-class exercise so that you guys can participate a little more. But actually, yeah, Ben, we have a couple poll questions. So essentially, all these questions, you guys are they're just multiple choice, and you just answer based off of, it's just suggestions, so like substitutions for ornamental, like traditional ornamental landscape plants. And you want to provide a native substitution, but it's multiple choice because the polling situation with Zoom is limited. So Ben, if you want to put one of those up, doesn't matter which order, I don't think.
Launching the poll now.
Yes. So yeah, if everyone wants to kind of answer that one, it's which California native alternative for Raphiolepis, which is hawthorn, like Indian hawthorn and whatnot. I'm assuming everyone's familiar with Indian hawthorn or hawthorn ones, which they're just these kind of evergreen compact shrubs that you see all over the landscape, and they're very tolerant and can get sunblasted, and they kind of have a little flowering period where they have these kind of pink to white flowers on them. Is everyone submitted? Can we see the results on it?
Yep. In the poll.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nice. So yeah, so most of you, it's kind of a trick question because there's like a really right answer and or like a more right answer, and that I mentioned it earlier. But I totally could make an argument for Rhus integrifolia and Heteromeles arbutifolia as being replacements for it, because the only difference there would maybe be in size, right? The lemonade berry and toyon get really large, though hawthorns can be pretty large also. So it's kind of like nobody gets it wrong unless you guessed the strawberry one. That one obviously isn't at all related, but yeah, I definitely think there's a way to argue for the bottom two too. So I was just trying to trick you guys. So let's do the next one. Yeah, so Dietes, wood iris. This one is so you can also look through your deck of cards to look at ones that we didn't go over if you want. However, you can also just submit ones that we talked about today. But your deck of cards is a resource that you guys should be using. You know, we just went over the most common ones, but all of these are definitely useful in Southern California gardens. Do we have the results?
We're still
Am I too pushy?
getting some votes in. I mean, I can end it whenever you want me to.
Let's do it. Let's end it.
You got it. Boom. Sharing the results.
Yeah. So obviously, like the Iris douglasana is just another iris. So it like they can kind of like for like. But again, I feel like Penstemon, Margarita Bop totally could make an argument for it in terms of a replacement. Also pretty adaptable and like flowering for long periods and that sort of thing. And that's the blue-eyed flax, I believe, the third one, which isn't, I don't think it is in your deck, but it also is like, actually it's on the cover of Carol's book, I believe. It's this guy. So great alternative to the wood iris. But yeah, I think you guys get it. I mean, we could do another one. We could do the rosemary. Let's see. Yeah, try that one. I guess, are there any questions? We can answer those too at the time. Or Tim, have you been answering all those in the chat? I don't really read the chat, guys.
I haven't
been.
Oh, yeah, maybe Tim has.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been answering the
Great.
chat questions. Those are in there, and plus I'm adding extra thoughts, my deep thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. If anyone wants to chime in with alternatives, because I came up with a list of like 5 others or 10 others for all of them that you could replace them with. So it's not, you know, it's obviously very.
I think a real cool one for the deities. Oh, the Montara got popular. Interesting.
Nice. I kind of agree. I feel like Artemis, like Montara, because the smell, like rosemary's got the. It just depends on what you're trying to replace it for. If you're trying to replace it for its structure or look, because another one on there would be like chemise, you know, like chamiso. That is like looks really similar to rosemary, but not very smelly. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. Yeah, I think. Let's see. Is there one more? Oh yeah, there is. There's lavender. Let's just do that one. And then let's get to your guys's PowerPoint. Oh, wait, I think we should do, yeah. Let's do one more. And okay, for lavender. They're all kind of trick questions, guys.
Another one as an aside for the deities alternative, which I know is pretty popular amongst the architect world, is Carex amplifolia and Carex spissa, which are some of the taller Carexes. And while they have really sharp leaf margins, like you can cut yourself, they're pretty tall and they have like a cool blue-gray foliage. They're nice and tight clumpers, and they're just they're just really cool looking plants. If you're looking for that erect kind of nature, obviously the floral component is not there, but like Claire said, it's hard to get like a perfect match on replacements oftentimes. So it's like you're either trying to replace the structure, the foliage, the flower, the smell. There's so many different reasons why, a client might come to you with one plant and you want to make an alternative suggestion. You kind of have to sell it on one of those points. Well, what is the reason why they're drawn to that plant so much, trying to make that the selling point for whatever your native alternative is. And sometimes there isn't always a perfect alternative and you just plant a non-native, and that's okay. Okay, guys.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's
Okay,
gonna be okay.
What's the result on that last one? Did we do it?
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, Salvia clevelandii. That's a no-brainer. I think the Verbena liliacina looks like it enough. It might not have the same kind of gray, silvery gray color in the foliage, but I think it could also work. And Celia and Rosa californica don't really look like it, but like I said, I feel like I could make an argument for any of them. Lavender also, though, I mean, any one of the salvias, I would even argue Lepichenia, with the smell and stuff. I know it doesn't really look like it, but I'm a fan, and I think you could really, it's just about kind of making the argument for them. I think let's go over the homework for next week, and then we can go through the slides because there's quite a few photos of your guys' of the homework. So next week's homework is, you're kind of like evaluating different resources, because you have these flashcards, but there are lots of different resources and they conflict sometimes, especially in size, the max size for something. So take note of these resources. I'll come back to this page, but Calscape is great. It actually it's like where these plants are, has a map and where the plants are found like natively, not necessarily sightings of them, but where they should be. So Calscape is good for getting to know varieties like locale. So what Tim had talked about earlier, which is like, if you see that it's from Northern California, you're probably not going to want to put it in a garden in Pacoima or something. So it's just knowing that Calscape is really helpful for that. They also have, a bunch of resources. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just share here my screen. Well, let's see, hold on a second. So the homework is, you're going to be observing a mature native plant, and you want to compare to the flashcards or any of these resources that we talked about. And I'm going to show you on my computer the different websites in a second. But you're essentially, you just want to see, you want to observe it and compare these resources. Is it like, how big is this plant? Is it full size? Does it need maintenance? How is it being managed? You want to kind of figure out what is the ultimate size for this thing, and like noticing any conflicting info and any maintenance guides from your resources, or pruning or watering. And I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to. So here's an example of your homework, essentially. Can you guys see this? This is so here's like Calscape, for example. I have to move some of these things so I can actually see it. And here's the map on the right. It says this plant is a nursery cultivar because we picked Pigeon Point. And so there's not going to be any natural area where they're located, but in something else, in a different plant that has a natural, what's the word I'm looking for? Natural, like wherever it lives. God, I'm sorry, guys. Anyway,
Habitat.
What was that? Habitat. Yes, thank you. So where their natural habitat would be in these like little yellow dots here on the side. But this is a nursery cultivar. And then when you scroll down, you can see they have the size, like the height and width, what kind of growth pattern it has, sun, all these things similar to your deck of cards. and dormancy. A lot of times they have a maintenance little icon here about any specific thing for maintenance. And then you have also Theodore Payne has their database. So here's Theodore Payne on the same variety, which is Pigeon Point. And similarly, they have pictures here on the right, and also the plant family. They have their height indications here, which are different than CalScapes. So CalScape says it goes down to 1 foot. This database says 2 foot high to this. So it's, and then they have their icons here, good in clay soil. Then there's Las Pilidas, super helpful. Also, they have their, I love his like little writings. This is from Bert Wilson. And he's just a little more flowery language, which is nice if you're into that. And here down below, P is the pH, also again, height and width, rainfall, things like that. And he usually throws in little interesting tidbits about like things that they've had, like problems they've had in the nursery or animals that don't like it or whatnot. So this is a great resource. And I believe there's several different resources, but you guys want to just consult a few on for your homework, and just pick any plant variety that you're interested in, or one that you work with frequently that you want to learn more about. And then, yeah, look through the different resources to kind of get some more information on it. Let's see, I think, and that stuff, you guys, you can just do that. And then on the following week, we'll just discuss them, and anyone who maybe wants to share things, or we can discuss any differences. You don't have to email me the what you found. Just make sure you do it, and then next week we will we'll go over it. So let's see. Now
Bless you.
Thank you.
okay. I'm sorry, wait, I'm sharing the wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was the homework again?
I can bring it up so you guys have it. It's also here. Oops, I'm not sharing a screen. I'm sorry. Thought I was sharing my screen, but I'm not. Okay, here. Okay, do you guys see this now? Ben, can you confirm? Can someone confirm if they can see this screen? Okay,
Confirmed.
cool.
Sorry, I
So
was
here's
on
the
mute,
homework.
but yeah, confirmed.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so here's the homework. You're just reviewing different resources. And you're going through based on like maintenance and full size, just all the kind of like indicators and important information for a plant. So you guys can pick whatever plant you want. Maybe stick it with something that we've covered today in the lecture, but it's up to you. And some of the resources that I mentioned are Las Pilidas Nursery database. Theodore Payne has their database, and calscape.org. Those are all really helpful. I have the resources page here, if you guys want that. But and also your flashcards, any books. There's like, there's tons of books too with helpful resources. Does anyone need that? Does anyone want to see the homework slide again, or is that good?
It is also on the first page of your workbook for
Thank
lesson 2. You have the resources is bullet point number 5, and number 6 is the homework. So all of the homework and resources are in your workbook. If you haven't been using that will always kind of, to some degree, follow along with Claire's presentation, and also a place for notes and the homework.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the PowerPoint of your guys' photos. Wait, where is it? Hold on a second.
Have you opened it recently, Claire?
I have.
Just open up PowerPoint, and then it should have recents. I would do that way.
Okay. PowerPoint recents. There it is. Okay, can you guys see this now? Looks like yes. Okay, so yeah, guys, not everybody's photos made it. I have to be honest. That's probably a good thing because there'd be like probably 100 slides. I tried to organize them a bit, but they are kind of all over the place a little bit. So, but the idea here, and I think it's just kind of, there's a lot like going over some of the common ones and some of these like full, like you guys, there was a variance of people sending in just like a close up of one to something more like this, which is like a landscape kind of photo. I think they all have their benefits. But yeah, something like this one, I mean, I guess this might be a nice time for any of you guys to chime in to be like, is there anything here like that? There's a lot of yarrow, there's some penstem in front. Was there anything you notice here of like maintenance wise that you would do differently? You can unmute yourselves, guys, and talk all you want.
Yeah, how do you get in there to do any cleanup? You know what I mean? You might step on a lot of things.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is a question of like the client's, aesthetic. If this is kind of a meadowy area that they don't want to be moving around in, they don't need to be moving around in, that's one thing. And then also a lot of these can be cut back once they're done flowering. So it might be like springtime or this time of year, they're flowering, but they get dead and then it looks kind of more tame again at a different time of year. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. I'm going to kind of move through these quickly because there's so many. This is another one of kind of the annuals. It looks here like a slope that's mostly just like annually thrown out. I don't see a ton of perennial or native perennials aside from, yeah. And so, so anyway, you guys, a lot of you did California poppies. They're here on the right. It's just a lupine, which is that purple, the purple one on the left-hand side with that big purple stalk, which also could be arguably a substitute for lavender, if you wanted to argue. Anyway, their lupine on the right is just is a germinating one, so that's kind of fun. Oh, this one's good because honestly, I was kind of lost here. And I was like, man, there's a lot going on here and it's kind of gnarly. There's not all natives in here. And in fact, I believe this on the left-hand side, this purple flowered gray bush, which is hard to see like really up close. But I believe this is like a Solanum, what is that, Solanum? Tim,
I think that's a Russian sage, or it's a non-native salvia, I think.
That's what I thought. I thought there was a lot of representatives here that were potentially non-natives, but it's a good example of ones that either could be substituted for natives or, probably are sages from other Mediterranean regions. So it probably is still drought tolerant. I think on the right there, but not sure. It looks like it could be an epilobium that's getting kind of like dry and raggedy. And like we talked, it's something that could definitely be cut back, especially since it reseeds. But this one's pretty, this to me needs some maintenance, like needs some cutting back. And also this could be a design thing where there's a lot of this texture that's like really sticky, and a lot of like frayy, frizzy look. So there might be a need for like, yeah, a nice bunch grass or something like, like some kind of manzanita, like an evergreen, smoother texture. So yeah, this one is interesting in that way. This one's a nice, like, we got a big picture. Tim, do you want to add anything to this or ask any questions about this one specifically?
To this one you just brought up?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like kind of in the throes of kind of some redesign there. We got a staked tree with a stake that is still in there with the original nursery stake. That should probably come out. We got a salvia that looks like it's just been cut back. We got some canyon prints here and there. We got some some non-native deciduous trees, maybe some Baccharis in that background,
Mhm.
maybe some Buddleia against the house, which is a Mediterranean non-native, but is a good companion. Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of a couple smatterings of plants,
Yeah.
natives. It's a mix.
Let's see. Oh, these were all the succulent type ones that you guys sent in. That's Dudleya bretonii in the center and Phaerocactus there on the right. And the background to the right one is the Edulis. What is that? Dudleya edulis. So yeah, those are a lot of these.
I don't believe the one on the left is a native cacti, though.
Oh, is it not?
I don't think so. So we do have a purple padded native. That's the Opuntia basilaris, but it doesn't have spines. It just has the glochnids, the little kind of very fine hairs that are really intense if they get them on your skin. But that one on the left, we're getting a word that it's a baby Rita, which yeah, so probably a good companion to native desert kind of gardens, but not a Cali native. And you're right, we on the right, that's totally like San Diego maritime scrub with the Phaerocactus viridescens and the Dudleya edulis. That's
good combo there.
Great combo.
And then there's like quite a few slides of Arctostaphylos of manzanitas, and you guys had all the things represented here. So these are like tree form ones. Here's with someone sent with the flowers. That's a good one of the close up of this, like that really to me has like that hawthorn substitution look, that obviously I think it's better looking, but that being said, I think this is kind of the idea for replacing it. I feel like this one on the right is like out of a book. It's beautiful, but that's kind of the deal with manzanita. I think this one on the left, the thing was is I didn't keep all your guys's, some of you added your labels and some didn't. And I just kind of had to mishmash everything together. So I guess, yeah, in the chat, if you guys want to like out yourselves and name your plant. But I believe this one's Sunset on the left. I believe this is a Manzanita Sunset, but kind of a smaller shrub, emerald carpet, and I believe not a ground cover, maybe McMinn on the right, was it? But yeah, so this, you can kind of see the difference. I tried to kind of put that difference there as this ground cover one really is hugging the ground. And I believe the McMinn now is just like a little bit more like Octopus wildy over there on the right. Ceanothus, we got a bunch of these kind of close-ups. You can see this one on the left is kind of, it looks to me like it's coming over or spilling over, cascading over like a wall, which is totally a great use for it. Yeah, I know whoever sent these two definitely gave me the names, but I'm blanking on them. Let's see. Maybe you guys will help me in the chat. Maybe you won't. Anyway, yeah, I think, let's see. Oh my God, I have too many things up right now. So yeah, another Baccharis here. Great example.
Looks almost like San Bruno Lady Baccharis, or it doesn't quite look like Pigeon Point, but
yeah, it's. But this is a great example of what Baccharis does, I think, which is just like fills the space. It's green and just like pretty standard tough guy, and you don't have to like think about having more elaborate look. It's just a green if somebody wants that. Lots of California buckwheat, guys. Like I feel like at a certain point I just was like, I stopped adding them. But this is a great example, the one on the right, of just how big and wild and they get. And I think we have a nice representation of those like white, almost pinkish colored like flowers to the rusty, like the dark rusty brown. We lot of California buckwheat, guys. And then I like this as an example because we have California buckwheat on the left and then chamise on the right. And I know a lot of people get those two confused in the wild because their leaf structure is kind of similar. And I thought this was a great example of being able to see the difference of those flower types. So on the right is not a buckwheat, and on the left is California buckwheat. So you can kind of see the California buckwheat is like almost like an umbrella. It has the straight up stem and then a bunch of flowers coming off of it. And the chamise has just like one stem and a bunch of flowers all kind of close together. I wanted to mention that because I know people think that chamise is buckwheat all the time. Another buckwheat, this was the Santa Cruz Island one, I believe. And this is a good example of when you could start cutting back deadheading those flowers, or if you like that rusty look, it's great too. Oh, here's all the hummingbird sage. Lots of that. I think this is a good example too of, wait, I think there might be another one. Oh no, okay. Yeah, hummingbird sage. There's some powdery mildew like we talked about. And it looks to be like, I mean, I can't tell because I don't know what's actually above, but it looks like, for example, on the left that it is maybe in a sort of shaded zone, but it does have this kind of DG below. So who knows? And I don't see a lot of leaf litter, but there is a little bit. So it does seem to be like it maybe is under some kind of shade situation. Oh, Salvia apiana, this white sage. I was thinking the one on the left potentially is maybe a little too shaded for white sage.
Totally.
And also with the leaf, that leaf drop around it, it makes me think that it is underneath a tree. So that might be something where that sage is not that stoked about being there. So that would be, again, white sage kind of wants the full sun. These are kind of, you can see the difference in like the light here. And I think the second one, this here is like a lot brighter. Cleveland sage, I believe, well, Cleveland sage on the right, black mellifera, Salvia mellifera in the center. And I'm not sure what the left one is, but I think all of these are good examples of kind of like the dry part of the salvias and the kind of maintenance here. So like you'd be cutting all these back at a certain point if you want to have that cleaner look. And this Cleveland sage is, I think it's a great example of this one on the right, because most of your photos are always of Cleveland sage with like the beautiful purple flowers and them all fresh and newly blooming. And to have this look of like, this is what it looks like when it gets like dry is, I think, really helpful. And it just is about talking with clients about if they want to keep that on the plant for birds to eat the seeds and whatnot, or if they want that gone. Oh, there's a bunch, guys, now of things that like, I don't know from like the vantage point, but there's a lot of different sages in here coming up. The one on the left though is not. And I wanted to put it there as a as a side by side there. I believe this one is a non-native. And what is this one called? It's like a hummingbird bush or something.
We're getting from the chat, it's lemon sage.
Is that what it is?
Maybe. I mean, most salvia, I think the center of salvia diversity is in Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. So I think Mexico has like hundreds of species of salvia.
Right. But this larger leaf, kind of this more lush leaf kind of is indicative of it. It tends to not look like this when they're from Mediterranean areas. So this is kind of like probably from not from California. But it's hard to say what every single one is. This is kind of my nightmare, guys, having to like identify plants on the spot over Zoom. But
I'm getting word from the chat that this is Salvia elegans pineapple sage.
Oh, this one on the left.
Oh no, the previous. Yeah.
Ah, okay, right.
With the red
Got it.
flowers.
With the red
okay,
flowers.
great. Okay, yeah. Right. So there are so many sages that you guys sent, and that's indicative of how many species there are, honestly. This is the Verbena liliana, is it? Yeah, Verbena lily, and on the left here, Lilacina, thank you. And this one on the right is hard for me to tell, but I believe it is. And I think these are kind of like a good example of it without the flowers. There's a few on the center one. But I believe the next one has more. Wait a second. Didn't I have more photos of this?
I think the one on the right might be a non-native Verbena, but
that's what, yeah. So I put them together though, so that you guys can see kind of native plants can look a lot like a non-native. So that's good and bad, you know, that's depending on what you want. So it kind of looks like a Lilacina to me, but I'm not sure. Again, this one, I can't really tell what's happening here on the left, but it seems to be, it could be it's just so blue. That could just be a lighting thing.
It's a lavender.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that would be I believe I
Spanish
have it-
lavender, isn't it?
Yeah, so here's this
Angela,
lavender.
it's like multifida.
Okay, yeah. So we have this, and then the following slide are the other one I believe is the French lavender. And lavenders are from another Mediterranean climate, but they aren't California natives. But a great alternative companion. Obviously, they can hang with the drought. They love this kind of climate, and there are plenty of alternatives. I mean, this one on the right could be some kind of sage, but I'm not sure.
Yep.
Oops. Oh God, I'm going.
Of the current slide, that's definitely like a Salvia clevelandii next to the Spanish lavender.
Right. So, okay. Well, if that's the case, then it's a great substitute, right? Because they look really similar. Again, this is another lavender. I believe that last photo is another shot of a different photo. But yeah, so it just kind of a lot of these lavender sage kind of combos where they work together / look really similar. So this one in the center is I believe a salvia also. More sages. Oh, here's Calliandra's Eriophyllum, and you have these 3 photos on the left are the like red fairy duster, and then someone submitted this one on the right with a pink one, and that's that's just the difference of them, but they are different species, the pink and the red. But yeah, but the pink and the red are very common, this pink fairy duster. And yeah, this one on the left is hard for me to, let's see. Hold on, I gotta move this picture out of the way. Yeah. This one is not a native, but I see it a lot in landscapes, and it is a companion plant. It's hard to see this one, guys, but it looks a lot like the Solanum one, the Solanum Parrishi, or anyway. Yeah, so but it's not a native, this one here. But it does grow really well in Mediterranean climates and works well. And there's several different sages that could fill this same niche if you wanted to put a native in.
Is this the one with these kind of like light lavender flowers?
Yeah.
This one to me looks almost like Verbena lilacina paseo rancho, which is like a lighter flower form of the lilac verbena. This one, like right next to the little dry rock bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a bigger form of the.
It looks really large for.
It gets bigger than the Lamina.
Okay. Yeah, and then just another note here, you can see there's like a lot of this like kind of we talked about this in the first class about kind of maintenance on keeping up with the grass that comes up, and you can see on the right there in the mulch there is grass coming up that is not intentional. So yeah, I just want to stay on top of that because that can get really out of control, and I think that would be just something you would be staying on top of in terms of maintenance for this situation. Oh, epilobiums, we got some of those in there. We got quite a few. And yeah, I think this is a nice, this photo, the larger photo, kind of, it's good for expressing like the kind of unruliness that epilobium can get going on. And yeah, I mean, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Here's the, we have a cattail here on the right. These aren't, sorry, they're not organized very well, guys, but there were a lot of photos. So yeah, the cattail on the right, this is a native, not really common in the nurseries, I believe. I mean, Tim, you would know better.
Well, you just need like a literal pond for it to thrive. So it's just, most people don't really have the proper habitat for it. I think, it's really like a plant that the corn dog plant, it needs to live in water. So yeah, not really common to have that sort of setting unless you have, your own little pond in the
right, kind of a
front yard.
riparian.
Yeah, real riparian.
Yeah, and then these other two on the left look like blue-eyed grass here, and looks like, especially this one on the left, is in kind of like a rain basin, you know, some kind of ephemeral waterway potentially, which is a great placement for it, and works really well with these rocks. Galvicia or Gambelia on the right, and then again this. I think there's two things going on, but this on the left is this Solanum that I can't think of the second name of. Parisiae?
I don't know if that's Solanum hinzianum areola, which is another Baja native. But I mean, I'm not a Solanum expert by any means. Yeah, we're getting from Scott, he believes it is Parisiae. It looks like it has little thorns on it too, so maybe.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that.
I don't know if Parisiae has thorns, but I know that Solanum hinzianum, we grow that. It's common name, Mariola, is pretty thorny. Big flowers.
Anyway, there's lots of photos, guys. I think, yeah, penstemon, there's a penstemon here on the left and one on the right that's a little out of focus, but it looks like there might be a sage or something, or some kind of sumac or something like that in the background. Oh, this is chaparral mallow, looks like, which is a fun one that likes a little more sun, and it's great for like native bees love this thing. And there's a few flowers here, but it usually has like these kind of orangish, yellowish flowers, or like more like an apricot, I guess.
For this species, the Malacathamus fascicularis, those are going to be pink flowers. That cultivar right there looked a bit more like Casitas, which is a selection from around Lake Casitas in Santa Barbara County. It's got like a bigger leaf, kind of less of the stellate hair, which is like, it's a little part of the leaf structure, which looks like a little umbrella if you look under a microscope. So the leaf is a little smoother. Yeah, the apricot flowers on the Malva, that's going to be a Butylon palmeri or Sphaerosia. It has more of the orange color flowers, and these bush mallows are typically going to range from white to pinks and are much bigger and spread vigorously.
Got it, like this guy. This was Mahogany Splendor, and this one's not a California native. It's native to like Southern Africa, but that's probably why it does well here. And I can't remember who submitted this, but we talked on email, and yes, I believe someone suggested to her. Yeah, can you?
Yeah, I do pruning at the Orange County Grape Farm and Food Lab in Irvine.
Right.
And they gave it to me as I get free plants there. but yeah, Nathan and Tim at the Food Lab told me that it was a native hibiscus. So I thought it was a California native. They may have meant it was a native African
right
hibiscus, but it's very drought tolerant.
Yes.
And, both the leaves and the flowers make a beautiful blue tea.
Oh, cool.
Really medicinal.
That's cool. Yeah, so this is a great example of another, I mean, at least close to another Mediterranean region. It's, but it's definitely drought tolerant and can work within a drought tolerant or California native garden. Let's see if there's so many more, guys. This is a ribes. I believe this one is the pink flowering one that is, but yeah, it looks like it's not full size. Definitely looks like a newer planting. I believe this one is the sanguinium, the pink flowered currant. But yeah, great example of it in nice open space here. Like all that mulch. This one I believe is Rhamnea, but it's hard to know contextually the size. Like this could be really small or really big. So I wasn't sure if this was Romnea or
That's
I think-
about, I submitted that also. That's
okay.
about the bush. I took this at Theodore Payne.
Okay, so did it have any flowers on it?
No, and it was about 4 feet tall, the shrub.
Oh, it could be Artemisia Douglasiana. Could be that also.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is really nice with the texture. And it like the difference would be Romnea has like a kind of harder leaf, and then the Artemisia has like a softer, much softer like leaf to if you could feel it and you were there and maybe touched it. Yeah, this looks like an Incellia californica, especially like that's before those sunflower flowers open. They kind of, this is what they would look like, and it has this these leaves, and since they aren't very silvery, I would assume it's the californica, not the farinosa. Let's see. Oh, this was a great example of the yarrow I was talking about, the texture of the leaves. So this is before it's flowered, and just like a really good example of like how beautiful the texture is, and how it can be a lawn alternative, and that it really spreads and fills the space. It's not, there's no real open space there. Yeah, this one, oh, this is Erigeron glaucus and the seaside daisy. So also before the flower. I think I liked these examples because without the flower, it just gives you an idea of what it looks like, because that's usually what you see in the books is it with the flower. So this kind of, yeah, like just a very lush look to it. Again, another one with no flower, but I believe it's a heuchera. It looks like a heuchera, which is a good. And we didn't go over heuchera in the slideshow, but they do really well under like understory, under like some shade. They're a great option for shady situations. They have beautiful, if you guys have your cards, they have a really beautiful flowering like on these like little skinny stems. And there's a lot of different types. Gosh, I can't find them right now. But yeah, there's tons of options with heuchera. Did we? Yeah, we didn't go over it. Anyway, I don't want to take more of anyone's time, and there are several more slides, but I think you guys get the idea. This is Buddleia, which is not a native, but companion plant works really well. And yeah, I think I should wrap it up because I could keep going, like I said, with the slides. If there's any more questions though, you guys can unmute yourselves and ask those questions. And I think we'll just kind of end this show, the slideshow here. Yeah, so you guys know what your homework is, and yeah, I guess we'll see you next week for soils. We're going to be talking about soils next week, and yeah, I believe that's it. Any questions? I guess I should read the chat.
Doesn't look like there. It looks like Tim
Okay.
answered most
Yeah.
of it.
Great. Yeah, so I guess we'll see you guys next week. Sorry for taking your time. Got carried away with the pictures. And thank you guys, and have a good night.
Bye.
See you next week.
I know.